A young woman requested a farm job. The inspiring surprise from a millionaire will amaze you. Emily scrolled through her phone, staring blankly at the help wanted postings. After losing her job at the diner, the world felt heavy, like the weight of the sky was pressing down on her. The modest Midwestern town that had once felt like home now loomed large, a reminder of her dwindling savings and empty fridge. Desperation gnawed at her as she anxiously contemplated each option, each representing a flicker of hope against the chaos in her heart. But as the rumors of Jack Thompson floated through the town like whispers carried by the wind, she felt an unsettling pull. The millionaire farmer was known for his sprawling fields of corn and soy, his machinery humming with efficiency. Yet, the stories of his cold demeanor made her hesitate. Could desperation outweigh her doubts? She found herself standing outside his estate, heart racing, palms sweaty. The grandeur felt intimidating, each inch a stark contrast to her humble upbringing. This was his world. The thought of approaching him felt like showing a moth to the flame. But what choice did she have? She had nothing left to lose, yet everything to gain. Jack's piercing gaze met hers as she shared her intentions, her voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. He studied her, the silence stretching between them. "What makes you think you're ready for this?" he asked, the challenge in his tone sending a jolt through her. She clenched her fists, wrestling with the inadequacy threatening to swallow her whole. "I'll prove it," she replied, the words tasting bitter and bold. Their bargain sealed in that moment sparked a rush of fear and determination. The days that followed twisted between exhilaration and crushing doubt. Each dawn, she trudged through the fields, facing tasks that left her exhausted yet exhilarated. The machinery seemed to mock her in complexity, but beneath the weight of frustration, a flickering resilience began to glow. Still, shadows flickered in the back of her mind. Was she good enough? She was often left staring into the distance, the sky blurring between reality and her insecurities. And then, the tension in town thickened like storm clouds. Whispers of financial trouble surrounding Jack began to spread, igniting resentment among locals who once revered him. She felt the resentment ripple through her, a mix of confusion and fear. Could she stand by him? Would they turn on her too? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Days turned into weeks, and with every interaction, Emily glimpsed the layers within Jack that hinted at vulnerabilities. She wanted to help him, to prove that she saw him beyond his wealth. But as her loyalty to him deepened, the cracks between her and the townsfolk widened. The looming town meeting felt imminent, a clash of community against the perceived enemy. In that moment of anguish, she stood up to speak, her heart racing, words tumbling out. Jack may have money, but he is also human. The tension held her aloft, and the weight of those words echoed through the hall. But then, just as she began to feel empowered, her hand brushed over a forgotten stack of letters at home, hidden secrets about her family interwoven into the fabric of Jack's estate. What did this mean for her newfound mentorship? The thought spiraled into desperation, tightening its grip on her heart. What she now faced was more than just a fight for Jack, but a revelation that could tear her from everything she thought she understood about family and community. The truth echoed louder than any whisper in the town, leaving the air thick with uncertainty. What do you do when the truth upends everything you thought you knew about yourself and those around you? Emily spent sleepless nights wrestling with the implications of the letters. Each crease in the paper revealed connections she had never anticipated. The cracks in her reality widened as she pieced together a world that seemed to straddle two opposing lives: her family's humble origins and Jack's opulent domain. How had it come to this? The next morning, She arrived at the farm, carrying the letters in her pocket like heavy stones. The sun broke through the clouds, but the warmth felt distant as uncertainty clawed at her insides. Jack's coffee was brewing in the kitchen, filling the air with a comforting aroma, a stark contrast to the turmoil churning within her. "Good morning, Emily." His voice was grounded, but the strain in his eyes mirrored her unease. "We have a lot to cover today. Jack, there is something we need to discuss," she began, her throat tightening. The words hung between them, brittle as glass. "Can it wait? I could really use your help in the Southfield today." His avoidance stung, igniting a spark of frustration. She felt like she was peering into the depths of his soul, searching for the man beneath the facade of the successful millionaire. Her resolve hardened. "No, it can't wait. I found something about my family and your estate." The words echoed through the space, heavy with a gravity that made Jack stop in his tracks. "What do you mean?" he asked, the guarded look sliding into curiosity. With a deep breath, she handed him one of the letters, her heart racing. Jack scanned the document, his brow furrowing. This cannot be," he murmured, almost himself. The air crackled with a newfound tension. "What do you think it means, Jack?" The vulnerability in her voice surprised her. They were no longer merely employer and employee. They were now entwined in a web of shared history, awaiting the unraveling. "It means," he began slowly, still processing, "that we're more connected than I had realized. I thought I was alone in this." The flicker of vulnerability in his posture ignited something within her. This wasn't just about her fate. It was about his too. Discomfort coiled in her stomach. "We need to talk about the town meeting," she insisted, shifting the conversation back. "People are angry enough to drive you out." Jack sighed heavily, the weight of his troubles evident in the slump of his shoulders. "Maybe they should be, Emily. I've held this estate for too long, and I've lost touch with what it means to belong. But you can change that. You have the opportunity to engage, to show them you care," she urged, determination flooding her voice. The words felt like a plea, but deep down, they also felt like a strategy, a way to forge a deeper connection with him. "Engagement requires vulnerability," he replied, his voice softer but laced with tension. "I don't want to expose myself to the same judgment they cast upon me. Isn't that what we are both facing?" She countered, her own fears now surfacing. "This truth about our histories might frighten you, but I believe it can unite us." Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the world around them shattered into shards of possibility. The revelation was more than just about family ties. It was about confronting shared weaknesses that had long been hidden. Emily suddenly understood. Confronting the town was not merely about defending Jack's reputation, but a way to forge her own identity amongst the very roots of her past. "Will you fight with me?" she asked, stepping closer, her voice barely a whisper. "Fight?" he echoed, and the way he spoke the word held promise and dread. "Yes, fight to reclaim who we are and what we stand for." The challenge hung in the air, electric and uncertain. But the town meeting would soon take place, and public sentiment was no longer some far-off concern. It loomed over them both, leaving a trail of questions and insecurities. Would they confront their past together, or would the weight of history tear them apart? In that pivotal moment, Emily realized the stakes had escalated beyond jobs and histories. It was about survival of truth, of connection, and perhaps most importantly, of self. As preparations for the meeting began, Emily's pulse quickened. She was plunging into uncharted waters, ready to ask questions that might not have answers. But she had one final thought before stepping onto that precarious path. How would they face the truth when it buried deeper than either of them ever imagined? Emily paced the kitchen, tension coiling tightly in her chest. The meeting loomed like a thunderstorm on the horizon, and with it came not only the weight of their shared histories, but also the vulnerability of exposing themselves to the town. Her mind raced through the scenarios that might unfold, the potential reactions of the townsfolk, their anger bubbling just beneath the surface. Would they accept the truth, or would it further alienate Jack? "Are you ready?" Jack's voice pulled her from her thoughts. He stood at the kitchen entrance, a shadow of uncertainty there, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. Ready? Emily's voice trembled. Ready for what exactly? Apologies or explanations? Both, he replied quietly, stepping closer. We have to face them together. You're right. It's not just about me anymore. His admission stirred something within her. Jack was gradually shedding the layers of wealth and entitlement, revealing the man beneath a man haunted by the ghosts of pride and privilege. She responded with a firm nod, the determination in her chest gaining strength. As they made their way outside, Emily noticed the beauty of the landscape, the fields stretching endlessly into the distance. Yet even that beauty felt like a facade, masking the turmoil of their impending confrontation. They passed through the barn, its worn wood providing a sense of history, sheltering their anxieties both past and present. Let us prepare what we need to say, she suggested, pulling out a notebook from her pocket. The act of writing down thoughts provided a semblance of control. If we can organize our ideas, it can help. Jack leaned against a post, watching her. I'm not the most practiced at public speaking, Emily. You've seen how detached I've become. But you're not alone now, she pressed, her fingers tapping on the notepad, brimming with questions and suggestions. Share what you truly feel. Let them see you not the millionaire who just shows up to receive applause, but the man who cares for his roots and his responsibilities. Easier said than done, he murmured, glancing toward the fields where the townsfolk had often gathered to discuss their grievances. The palpable energy of discontent wafted through the air like an unwelcome breeze, stirring a sense of trepidation in both of them. Maybe, Emily countered, but it's essential. To confront our pasts is to claim our identities. As they discussed their approach, she began to realize something important about herself. She had a voice that demanded to be heard. The letters in her pocket weren't just revelations of her lineage. They were keys to her own empowerment. No longer would she merely serve others, she could stand up, not just for herself, but for the man alongside her. You're right. I've ridden the waves of my privilege for too long, and it's time to chart a new course, Jack admitted, newfound resolve hardening his tone. Emily felt exhilaration rising within as she sensed a shift in him, a crack in the armor of his carefully constructed walls. Let us embrace the discomfort together, Jack. Allowing ourselves to be vulnerable can lead to restoration. With a deep breath, they turned toward the town, the moment of truth drawing nearer. They would need to confront the indignant spirits of the community, but more importantly, they would confront their own uncertainties, the raw fears that lingered in their hearts. How can we prepare for their anger? Jack asked, anxiety lacing his voice again. We can acknowledge it, Emily responded, her steady gaze locking onto his. Instead of deflecting blame, let us take responsibility for our choices, even those made unknowingly. It will show them we're here to stay, ready to amend what we can. Do you think the LL even care? They will care, she assured him with conviction. They want authenticity, someone who understands their struggles. And that includes us. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the land, Emily felt a spark of determination ignite within. It was not only a fight for Jack's reputation, it was also a fight for their collective future defined by honesty and resilience. Would they have the courage to face what lay ahead? Would vulnerability indeed transform a fractured relationship into a powerful alliance? The meeting awaited, and a glimmer of anticipation mingled with anxiety, setting the stage for their reckoning. As they approached the crowd that was slowly gathering, Emily took Jack's hand, a silent pact that they would face what came next with unwavering conviction. But first came the question that loomed large. How would they respond when the past rose up to meet them in the form of bitter accusations and unsettled histories? Emily stood at the edge of the gathering crowd, nerves thrumming beneath her skin. The townsfolk were murmuring amongst themselves, their expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism. As she and Jack stepped forward, it felt as though they were crossing a threshold into another realm, one where their identities would be reshaped forever. Each step echoed with doubts, and possibilities. Jack, typically so poised, appeared almost fragile beside her, as if the burden of their shared history could crack him under its weight. She felt the intensity of the moment press against them, the whispered judgments hanging in the air. In this vivid landscape of uncertainty, the stakes couldn't be higher. They were about to confront not just the past, but everything they intended to become. "Remember," she whispered to Jack, locking eyes with him, "we're not here to win them over with charm. We're here to own our stories." He nodded, visibly steeling himself, but she could see the fear dancing behind his resolve. Would he falter? Would she? The tension was palpable, a current of vulnerability that ran between them. As they reached the center of the assembly, Emily could feel the weight of every gaze, every scrutinizing eye analyzing her every expression. She took a breath, her own pulse quickening as the town's mayor, an elderly man with a weathered face, stepped forward. The murmurs hushed, replaced by an expectant silence. "Jack Aldridge," the mayor began, his tone even but his eyes betrayed an edge of bitterness. "You've come to deliver your message. Let us hear it." Jack stepped up, his usual confidence wavering under the scrutiny. "Thank you for gathering here today. I know my past actions have hurt this community, and I take full responsibility," he started, his voice steadier than she expected. Emily could see the flicker of surprise in the townsfolk as Jack laid bare his intentions, peeling back layers of privilege and revealing the man who sought redemption. She felt pride swell within her for him, the man she had witnessed evolving. But as his words fell like lead, Emily was struck by her own realization, a flicker of power igniting in her core. She wasn't just here as Jack's ally. The spark of responsibility pulsed deep inside, urging her to step into the light. Would she allow herself to be vulnerable as well? "Jack," she interrupted gently, stepping forward, not waiting for him to invite her. The crowd shifted, a collective intake of breath stolen by her intervention. "There's more to this story," she said, feeling the pulse of adrenaline in her veins. "My story is woven into yours, and with it comes my truth." Jack's gaze met hers, and she understood in that moment that they stood on the precipice of something transformative. The facades would have to fall. My journey isn't one of wealth or entitlement, but of questions left unanswered, history buried beneath the weight of expectations, and the struggle to uncover who I really am. Her voice picked up strength with every syllable. "I have spent years serving others, hiding within the shadows of what's expected. But standing here today, I take a stand not only for myself, but for every individual who feels they don't belong." Stunned silence engulfed the crowd. Emily's heart raced like a drum, each beat urging her to press on. In that moment of collective astonishment, she recognized the gravity of their shared experience, bonding the two of them through the fragility of honesty. With a newfound sense of clarity, she leaned into the fears that had once held her captive. This was not just Jack's reckoning, it was hers too. As she spoke the raw truth about her struggles, her yearning for acceptance, her fight against invisibility, the crowd began to digest her words. She noticed subtle shifts among them, nods of understanding, softening of expressions. They weren't just listening, they were engaging. The emotional weight of unspoken truths began to shift the dynamics. Could this moment evolve into a pathway for real connection? Would they see the mutuality in their struggles rather than simply point fingers? But then came a voice, a sharp edge cutting through her momentary triumph. "And what do you intend to do about it? Words mean little without action." The voice of one of her old classmates pierced through, laden with years of skepticism. Emily's heart sank, but the resolve within her hardened. How could she turn this challenge into an opportunity for growth? What action would they need to prove their sincerity? "Yes," she replied, her voice echoing the determination she felt deep within. "We are ready to take action. We aren't here to write a narrative of redemption for applause, but to lay a foundation for future change." As the crowd shifted again, their curiosity ignited by her commitment, She realized they were beginning to see real potential in vulnerability. With a newfound alliance forged in honesty, Emily turned to Jack, sensing the change in him, the light of possibility kindling in his eyes. They both stood on the brink of discovery. Her fight for belonging mirrored his need for authenticity. But still, uncertainty loomed thick in the air. What steps would they take next, and would they find the courage to act on their words? Would the townsfolk accept this emerging alliance, or would their past forever hold them captive? Emily's heart raced as the energy shifted in the crowd after her declaration. A mixture of fear and exhilaration coursed through her. She was no longer merely a voice echoing in the past. She was now an agent of potential change. But with every ounce of courage came a tidal wave of uncertainty. How would they translate vulnerability into actionable steps? She caught Jack's eye, and in that moment, they shared a silent agreement. They had to strategize, to craft a plan that would stand as a testament to their sincerity. Emily could feel the mounting challenge lurking behind the expressions of skepticism in the crowd. With lingering echoes of the voice questioning their commitment, she realized that words would not be enough to forge a new path. "I propose we hold workshops," she suggested, her voice steady yet vulnerable. "Forums where we could discuss our stories and seek solutions together." The audience murmured again, and Emily felt tension coiling in her stomach. Had her idea been received, or would it be met with derision? Jack stepped forward, a newfound determination etched across his features. "Emily is right. We can't just stand here and share our pasts. We need to invite everyone in. This will require bravery, not just from us, but from each person who has felt the weight of unspoken grievances. We must create a space for open dialogue, free of judgment." Their path was becoming clear, but with clarity came the fear of execution. How could they ensure these sessions would be genuine and not just a box-checking endeavor? One woman from the back spoke up. "And what guarantees do we have that you both won T-bail when things get tough?" Her words sliced through the air, and Emily felt the anger bubble in her chest. The woman's doubt mirrored the thoughts that had often haunted Emily at her lowest points. Would she truly hold fast in the face of adversity? "I understand your concerns," Emily replied, finding the strength in her breath. "I'm standing here, in front of all of you, vulnerable and open to criticism. I don't have all the answers, but I promise you that I will work alongside you. If we want to create change, we must be accountable to one another, no matter how uncomfortable it gets." Jack stepped in again, his voice a soothing balm. "Let this be a community effort. If I falter, I want to hear it from you. Your voices matter, and they will guide our journey." The crowd remained silent, the gravity of their words settling in. Emily's chest tightened as she noticed hesitant faces beginning to shift. There was unrest mingled with a flicker of hope, and her heart ached at the prospect of true connection. But doubt cast its shadow once more. An internal monologue played out in her mind. What if they failed? Would their honesty be met with the same scorn that had haunted them in the past? To show our commitment, Jack continued, unaware of her spiraling thoughts, "We could start with a community project. Something visible that can unite us all, like restoring the old park. The tangible effect will speak louder than promises." Emily waved away her self-doubt, listening to the thoughtful murmurs surrounding them. Could taking action in front of the community help solidify their resolve? A small spark of excitement flickered within her. "We could also partner with local organizations, create mentorship programs that foster growth in those who need it. We have a means, we just need the desire to act." The anticipation in the air shifted, now filled with an energy that felt tangible. Emily was burgeoning with ideas, and she sensed Jack's enthusiasm mingling with her own. Their words were no longer mere sentiments, but the scaffolding of something far more significant, a collaborative rebirth. Yet, amid the budding hope, a shadow flickered. What challenges lay ahead? Would they confront their own past actions as they led others into vulnerability? Would their past hinder the relationships they desperately wished to mend? As the first tentative nods of agreement permeated the crowd, an overwhelming urgency spurred Emily forward. Let us not waste time. If we are to change our narratives, we hold ourselves responsible for our actions from today onward. Jack stepped closer, a spark in his eyes that mirrored her own determination. Emily felt their resolve intertwining, a potent blend of intention that brewed in the soft murmurs of public opinion, now contingent upon their principles. But before they could resolve this chapter, a chilling thought crossed Emily's mind. What if they were confronted by those who swore never to trust them again? How would they respond to their anger, their bitterness? The next steps were imperative, fraught with consequence, yet also potential for rebirth. She sensed they were teetering on the edge of a precipice, one that could reshape their lives if only they found the courage to leap. Would they embrace the challenge, or would the shadows of their past rise to consume them once more? Emily's pulse quickened as she absorbed the hesitant nods from the crowd. She and Jack had sparked a flicker of hope, but it felt tenuous, like a candle in a gusty wind. Did they have the resilience to face past disappointments while pursuing genuine change? All right, we need to establish a timeline, Jack said. His tone shifted to business-like urgency. Let us not just talk about workshops and projects. We have to put concrete dates down. The shift in conversation tethered Emily to reality. Agreed. We should meet weekly to refine our ideas and start reaching out to potential partners, she replied, her voice sharper than before. The process of execution was daunting, yet the adrenaline of the moment rallied within her, a stark reminder that progress rarely stemmed from uncertainty. Each new task illuminated a growing determination within Emily. She envisioned workshops not only as spaces for sharing grievances, but also as platforms for personal development. What if they could extract shared lessons from their pain? As they discussed the logistics, her mind drifted back to the woman who had questioned their commitment. What guarantees do we have? Echoed in her thoughts. That was a question Emily had grappled with herself for far too long. How could she assure others when she struggled to assure herself? The strategy unfurled before her like a blueprint. How about we incorporate guest speakers? People who have successfully navigated their own trials and emerged stronger, she suggested, inspiration igniting her words. She envisioned individuals who would embody resilience, showing that recovery and courage were possible. Their strength in stories, Jack agreed, jotting down notes, his mind racing to keep pace with hers. We can create a story bank. People can share their experiences, and those stories could fuel our workshops. As they refined their plans, Emily felt the swell of hope intermingling with trepidation. Each decision felt monumental, each small victory poignant. Yet lingering in her thoughts was the obscure uncertainty of her own capabilities. Had she truly healed enough to lead others into their vulnerabilities? Later that evening, Emily sat alone in her room, surrounded by hastily scribbled notes and demographic surveys. The weight of commitment settled heavily on her shoulders. She tapped her pen against the table, reflecting on the sheer audacity of attempting something so monumental. What if they couldn't team match their ambition with delivery? Would they become yet another hollow promise in a string of failed initiatives? The voices of her past whispered doubts, urging her to retreat into safety. In the depths of that quiet, Emily realized the importance of facing those fears head-on. Vulnerability would be her guide, not just for herself but for everyone involved. Perhaps in unearthing her own truth, she could illuminate paths for others. Would this journey display her strength, or would it magnify her inadequacies? Determined to galvanize her worries into motivation, Emily rolled her shoulders back and began to map out the core values of the workshops. Their foundation would rely on honesty and accountability. She was done courting her past grievances in the shadows. Days turned into plans and movements turned into actions. They scheduled the first meeting and secured a small venue, its proximity to the park serving as a constant reminder of promised change. But the impending meeting loomed large, and doubt once again threatened the walls she had carefully crafted around her ambition. What if they encountered the very individuals reluctant to give her a chance? The confrontation weighed heavily. Just as she was about to call Jack to discuss their proposed agenda, a notification lit up her phone screen. It was a message from the woman who had initially voiced skepticism. "We need to talk," it read. A chill ran down Emily's spine. This could either be an opportunity for clarity or a confrontation that would unravel everything. The stakes had just escalated, and her resolve would soon be tested in a way she hadn't anticipated. Would she confront her disbelief head-on, or would she allow doubt to gray the horizon once again? Emily stared at her phone, heart racing as she read the stark message again. "We need to talk." The lack of context was alarming, but it also piqued her curiosity. Memories flooded her mind, the initial confrontation, the palpable skepticism in the woman's voice. This was more than just a chance to quell doubts. It was a pivotal moment that could define Emily's journey. With a stealing breath, she made the decision to respond immediately. "I'd like that. When and where?" She hit send, her stomach twisting with uncertainty. The message had ignited a mix of dread and anticipation. What if this conversation unraveled the carefully woven plans she and Jack had crafted? Yet, what if it could propel her forward? Hours crept by agonizingly slowly before the woman replied, suggesting a nearby cafe. Emily could recall the place immediately, the scent of roasted coffee, the familiarity of laughter, and the echoes of conversations past. It was there that she had sought refuge during times of doubt. A safe haven she was now considering entering for an encounter that felt loaded with significance. Later that evening, as she dressed, Emily meticulously chose her outfit, a subtle but hopeful choice. Nothing too formal, yet not casual enough to imply indifference. She needed to communicate readiness, seriousness, and the willingness to engage in a difficult but necessary conversation. Selecting her favorite necklace, a small token of resilience she held onto since her own journey, felt essential. It served as a reminder of her strength, one that she hoped to convey. When she arrived at the cafe, her nerves soared as she spotted the woman seated at a table in the corner. She wore a neutral expression, one that reflected neither animosity nor warmth, making Emily's pulse quicken. Would she find the words to express her vision? Could she muster the strength to stand up against the doubt that had hounded her? "Thank you for meeting with me," Emily began, her voice stronger than she felt. She slid into a chair opposite, deliberately maintaining eye contact. The moment felt charged, the atmosphere thick with unvoiced questions. "Emily," the woman nodded, her expression still unreadable. "Let us get straight to it. I appreciate your attempts to drive change, but skepticism naturally follows what appears ambitious. I need to know what specifically makes you believe this will work." The inquiry hung in the air, a gauntlet thrown at Emily's feet. Anything less than a strong response might leave her vulnerable, questioning her capacity to lead. She inhaled, gathering her thoughts. "I understand your doubt. I've wrestled with it myself. But we all have stories, ones we struggle with, and I believe our workshops could be a constructive platform for sharing those journeys." That response was met with a flicker of interest in the woman's eyes. Emily seized that moment, animating her vision of the workshops. She detailed the potential of transformative personal stories and the value of empathy. When compassion meets shared experiences, it builds understanding. It creates a foundation where people feel safe to explore their vulnerabilities and grow. A silence blanketed the table. Emily's heart raced. She laid herself bare. The woman leaned back slightly, considering. "What guarantees can you offer? It's easy to talk about change, making it happen now, that's a different beast." Emily felt her breath catch. This was the crux of the confrontation. "I can't guarantee outcomes, but I can guarantee intent. My past has taught me resilience, and it's exactly that resilience I aim to foster in others." The weight of her words settled between them. "Will you consider being part of this change with me?" The woman's gaze shifted, processing Emily's sincerity and conviction. It was a moment of reckoning, one that could very well tip the scales in favor of success or failure. Just as the woman adjusted her posture, the cafe door chimed open, and in walked an unexpected face, a figure from Emily's past, one she hoped to avoid. This encounter, which could either validate her development or dredge up buried vulnerability, was suddenly at play. How would this unexpected presence impact her negotiations? Would they breathe confidence into her resolve? Or would they unravel her newfound courage? The stakes of her journey had never felt higher. Emily's breath hitched as her gaze settled on the unexpected figure entering the cafe. James, her former colleague, had once been a trusted companion, but their relationship had soured after his critical comments regarding her aspirations. The friction between them had never been resolved. It had simply lingered, a ghost overshadowing her confidence. Momentarily frozen, she watched as he surveyed the cafe, finally landing on her. There was a flicker of recognition in his eyes, but he made no move to approach. Instead, he chose a table directly across from hers, an imperceptible challenge rearing its head. This was not the reunion she had envisioned, and it certainly wasn't the backdrop she had hoped for during this pivotal conversation. The woman across from her, the catalyst for this meeting, seemed to sense the thickening tension. "Emily, focus," she urged gently but firmly. "You need to center your thoughts." Fighting the urge to glance back at James, who was the last person she wanted scrutinizing her, it took all her strength to redirect her focus on the matter at hand. "Right? My intent," she murmured, inhaling deeply to steady her racing heartbeats. "I believe change requires strong foundations, but like any structure, it needs the right support. And that's what I'm trying to build." The woman nodded, her expression shifting as Emily continued articulating her vision, now fueled by a sense of urgency. "My workshops aim to provide a supportive network and a safe space for people to navigate their stories. It's not just about sharing. It's about fostering genuine connections and mutual growth." Her words hung in the air, and for a fleeting instant, doubts began to ebb. She could feel the conviction in her voice, the fire of her passion blurring the shadows of James's presence. Still, she caught sight of him leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, wearing an expression that screamed skepticism. Glancing sideways, she caught his eye for a brief moment. His icy demeanor reminded her of their past disagreements, how he never believed in her vision, how he had written off her attempts as naive. But she returned to the conversation at hand, drawing strength from that painful memory. People often overlook the power of sharing stories. We dismiss it as trivial when, in reality, it can drive profound change, she continued, her voice resolute. "Interesting perspective," the woman said, her gaze piercing into Emily's. "But is there a plan for sustaining this initiative? What comes after the workshops?" Change is incremental, and one-time events rarely lead to lasting outcomes. As the woman spoke, Emily understood the necessity for substance and persistence behind her dreams. She felt a new determination fuel within her. "I want to create a follow-up program," she asserted, imagining the framework taking shape before her eyes. Monthly gatherings, continued mentorship, even an online forum. A community where participants can support one another far beyond the first few sessions. The woman nodded pensively, her expression warming slightly. "That's an improvement. You're starting to think long-term." Meanwhile, James's presence was a dull ache in the background, a reminder of her vulnerability. Yet, with each affirmation from the woman, his sharp presence began to dull. Emily found the confidence within herself to speak freely, wrestling doubts down, even as he leaned forward, clearly still unimpressed. "Are you prepared to handle criticism?" The woman challenged suddenly, her voice a testing probe. "I've faced it before, especially from James," Emily replied, locking eyes with her former colleague once more. "And I surmounted it. I'm here to grow, and if this is going to work, I have to be ready for that." As she uttered those words, there was a new clarity, an awakening of her worth that she hadn't fully recognized until now, a result of confronting her fears directly, less about James now and more about her mission. Just then, the woman's phone buzzed and she glanced down, her eyes widening slightly. "I need to take this in private. But you've made significant points today, Emily. We'll continue this after I finish." As she stood to exit, Emily felt a fresh wave of exhilaration rushing through her, the opportunity to rethink her approach, and the chance to rehash her vision unencumbered, perhaps also unshackled from the baggage of old setbacks. But how would she re-engage James after everything? The lingering tension in the room surged again, foreshadowing a potential confrontation that could threaten the momentum she had built. The stakes were reassembling, more complicated than before. Would she have the strength to confront the past as she pursued her future? Or would the shadows of doubt pull her back into an abyss of uncertainty? Emily watched as the woman slipped through the cafe door, her earlier advice resonating in Emily's mind. Focus. With a deep breath, she sought to draw the strength she had unearthed moments ago, only to find her gaze caught once more by James. He had straightened in his chair, and his arms were no longer crossed. Instead, a look of slight curiosity flickered across his face, pulling Emily's thoughts into a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. Was he finally willing to engage, or was this just another attempt to bait her into a confrontation? She had spent too long anchoring her self-worth to his approval, but now the urge to wrest that validation from him was fading. She had a vision that reached beyond his petty judgments. Yet, the knot of unease in her stomach tightened, reminding her of the years she'd spent proving herself in a professional environment that had not always embraced her. "Hey, Emily," James called out, his tone deceptively light. "Don't let me interrupt your brainstorming session." The challenge was palpable, a subtle taunt that sought to test her newfound confidence. For a moment, she hesitated, weighing her response against her desire to maintain control over her narrative. "I'm not brainstorming, James. I'm building something real," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. He raised an eyebrow, a flicker of astonishment mixed with reluctance. "Building? You mean like a community center or something? Last I checked, you were just planning some workshops." The condescension in his remark lingered in the air, an echo of their past exchanges. But rather than falling into the pit of self-doubt he had once crafted so skillfully, she felt the conviction return, illuminating her purpose. "It's much more than that. It's a framework for growth, mentorship, and strength among individuals. What were you doing in your last job, fostering shadows or building ladders?" The atmosphere shifted slightly, his expression morphing from amusement to contemplation. Still, she recognized the glimmer of skepticism simmering beneath his brow. "Are you sure you're ready for what happens next?" he probed, leaning forward, attempting to execute his critical role of the skeptic. Taking on criticism from participants, and what if they really don't connect? What if this whole thing crashes and burns? Then it crashes and burns, and I will learn from it. Emily shot back, surprising herself with the fervor of her own voice. She was stepping further into the unknown, but with each word exchanged, Emily was reclaiming her power. "What I want to do is let fear of failure dictate my potential. I'm tired of letting the opinions of others decide my worth." His silence hung heavily, the weight of her assertion palpable. James breathed in, and for a brief moment, his subtle challenge seemed more vulnerable, as though he recognized the cracks in his facade. "People underestimate you," he finally said, his voice low, reflective. "Doesn't he mean you have to prove them right? I'm not here to prove anything to anyone. Not to you, and not to anyone else." That was the moment her pulse thrummed with an invigorating mix of anxiety and exhilaration. This was nothing short of a revelation, a critical juncture akin to the very conversations she envisioned leading in her workshops. Here she was, in a cafe instead of a conference room, wrestling both with her past and her future in that definitive moment. She recognized how far she had come, how she no longer needed permission to forge her path from anyone, especially him. Emily could feel the weight of potential radiating from her. Breakthroughs weren't merely reserved for others. They were meant for her, too. Then, perfunctory footsteps echoed against the tiled floor behind her. Emily's focus broke as the cafe door swung open again. She turned to peer over her shoulder, curiosity alight in her heart. Before she could process the new arrival, James tapped the table, drawing her gaze back to him. "Just remember, criticism can be constructive. Don't shut it out completely. There might be valuable insights. With those words, she recognized his attempt at maturity, an olive branch entwined in a subtle jab. Still, her trajectory felt unyielding. I'll keep in mind. Change requires adaptation. James, she retorted, feeling a new layer of resilience mold itself within her mindset. Adapt to succeed, or fail to adapt, he slowly replied, the challenge careful yet lingering in the air. Even as the door creaked open, Emily's focus remained on her burgeoning principles. I choose success, she declared definitively. But as the door swung wide, she instinctively turned back to see who had entered, her heart racing anew. What lay ahead? Who was stepping into this volatile moment? Because with every turn, there lay further tension, new revelations looming at the edge of her pursuit for growth. Now more than ever, she sensed the transformative journey was just beginning. Would the challenge reveal a deeper opportunity for her? Or was this a divergence she hadn't anticipated? Emily's pulse raced as she turned to see who had entered the cafe, the air feeling charged with potential. To her astonishment, it was the woman they had just discussed, her earlier interrogator. The woman's expression appeared softer now, with an air of anticipation and respect. This unexpected return introduced a sudden sense of urgency. Emily seized the momentum, words spilling forth. "Can we speak openly?" she asked, her voice steady, underscoring her intent to seize control of her narrative. She glanced at James, still sitting frozen in place, processing the developments unfolding around him. "Absolutely," the woman replied, settling into the chair left vacant just moments ago. "I apologize for leaving so abruptly. Something came up, but I believe our discussion is imperative." Emily could feel the tide of tension shift to a reassuring current of collaboration. "Can we start by revisiting the workshops?" Emily launched in, her passion reignited. "I truly believe these can serve as a pathway for growth, accountability, and shared stories." The woman nodded, a hint of approval crossing her features. "Excellent. I was intrigued by your concept of structured follow-ups. That's crucial for sustaining community engagement." Emily felt a rush of validation, warmth flooding her cheeks. "I think we should also incorporate opportunities for mentorship within the workshops to foster deeper connections." The woman leaned forward, intrigued. "Mentorship, that's a key element. Someone who has been through similar struggles can resonate profoundly with others. Perhaps even involve local leaders who have successfully navigated their own challenges." "Exactly," Emily exclaimed, the excitement bubbling in her chest. "Their stories will forge a real connection, show people they aren't alone in this." James remained silent, but Emily sensed his internal conflict as the new exchange unfolded. His skepticism waned, and he seemed to be considering the larger implications of what they discussed. "The community will need proof," he finally spoke up, the critical edge dulled by an unexpected depth. "You'll have to show them this is genuinely about change. I don't intend to prove myself to them. I intend to co-create a space where we all evolve together." Emily shot back, re-establishing her newfound confidence rooted in authenticity. It felt liberating to stand firm against perceived constraints. The woman's smile widened, approving. "Yes, Emily, share your initiative without hesitation. You are on the path to establishing your authority, embodying a leadership style that resonates with the very vulnerabilities you're addressing." James shifted in his seat again, no longer dismissive. "So what is the first step?" he asked, leaning in, a flicker of genuine curiosity illuminating his features. "Let's draft a timeline together," Emily replied quickly, feeling a swell of determination. "We could set measurable goals for our workshops and their accompanying mentorship programs. That way, when the community asks how they can engage, we already have a structure in place." This approach centers grassroots involvement and holds everyone accountable. The woman chimed in, a sense of pride radiating from her. Emily felt an exhilarating sense of achievement rise within her, a sense of forging not just path, but purpose. As the cafe began to buzz with activity, Emily, James, and the woman convened their focus. The conversations flowed, probing deeper into actionable strategies. They envisioned this network as a transformation that would ripple through their town, a vibrant tapestry of authentic stories and resilience. James was gradually evolving from a specter of doubt in her life into an ally. "I think this can actually work," he proclaimed, a newfound resolve underlying his statement. His support now felt more substantial than before. "Let's not just stop at workshops," Emily proposed, her enthusiasm booming. "Let us hold community events quarterly to evaluate progress, celebrate achievements, and address growing issues. We can foster that accountability instead of fear." The woman smiled. "Knowingly, we should start engaging local businesses, promote their involvement as sponsors. We must reflect the unity we're striving for." As they continued strategizing, a sense of clarity enveloped Emily. A light bulb moment surged through her. She was no longer merely reacting to others' perceptions of her. She was actively shaping her own narrative, one firmly rooted in vulnerability and undeniable inner strength. Finally, as crumpled notes filled the table and ideas morphed into a blueprint for action, the reality of their next steps crystallized. "Can we agree on our objectives?" Emily asked animatedly. "Before our first community workshop?" "Yes," they echoed in unison, fortified by the collective energy of transformed doubt into hope. As they laid down the foundation for their initiative, the narrative shifted not just for Emily, but for James as well, a moment of connected triumph, defining their evolution. Later that night, as she returned home with her heart swelling with anticipation, Emily recognized the sense of accomplishment that she had long desired. No longer did she see a shadow of herself filled with doubt or wavering hesitations. She saw resilience, a fire ignited within her, illuminating the path ahead, marked by shared journeys from herself to those she would guide in their struggles. Emily stood tall, a newfound confidence radiating from her. In this process, she had achieved something pivotal, a meaningful alteration not only within herself, but also across the lives she touched. Now, she could finally celebrate, eyes fixed on the horizon of possibilities awaited in a town longing for connection and change. But as the night settled in, she couldn't shake the thought of their unfolding journey. The world outside waited expectantly for their next steps. And suddenly, an urgent thought punctured her peace. Their effort was just beginning, shimmering with potential as they marched into the community, ready to inspire change. So, what would come next? Would the transformation they envisioned crystallize into a new reality? Or would they face unforeseen challenges that might undermine their efforts? The beginning was not just an initiative. It was a bold call to action. And Emily was ready to embrace it, all the challenges, the victories, and the profound connections to come. As she fell asleep that night, a relentless urge pulsed in her veins. Those beneath her wings were counting on her, and she was ready to become the luminary she had always aspired to be. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional story that will inspire your own journey of overcoming challenges. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is vital. Comment your reactions and theories about how Emily's story will unfold. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share the power of transformation.